Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Fireworks in the Real World. Thought we might actually open the program this time and actually look at fireworks. Always a good thing to do when you're trying to do a tutorial. Okay, let's have a look. Here we go. Fireworks CS6. I am in you. Right. This, I think this is the default layout when you first install Fireworks. Let's create a new document. So standard stuff, width, height, resolution, that kind of thing. And we see a lovely artboard. So by default we have panels over to the right. We have lots of panels which can all be moved around in typical Adobe style. So you can actually just grab either a tab or the entire tab bar and move that around. Now, I'm moving it because I like to work with all my stuff on the left. I don't know whether that's just because I'm left-handed or because that's just what I've done for such a long time. I'm not sure, but it seems logical for me to work from the left to the right. And I quite often have this kind of layout, so I start off with pages. So I can have multiple pages of artboards, layers, the usual different objects on different layers, typical of many graphics programs. States, which I think is a bit more unique to Fireworks. You can have a layer with different states. So one state might be a hover state, another state might be an active state. So you can organise yourself in different ways. History. Normal undo level history, so you can step back through what you've done. I'm just you can minimize all these panels down to kind of icon sets so you can get to them quickly. But these are the kind of things I use more often. So I keep some tooly things down the bottom and my main organizational items at the top. Okay, so let's save that a minute. Now, Fireworks uses the PNG format, Portable Network Graphic format, which it's a lossless compression codec with alpha transparency, so it'll keep transparent items. Now, it's a bit odd that Fireworks uses this format, but what it does do, it allows any graphics package to be able to preview your work. But Fireworks also writes a lot of metadata to this sort of file format for all of your layers and pages. So when you open it in Fireworks, it can display it in the way Fireworks chooses to. But it used to cause me a few problems because I would quite often overwrite my main editing file, so the equivalent of a PST. I would overwrite it with a flat version. So I'd overwrite the Fireworks PNG with a flat graphics PNG, which got a bit confusing. But they haven't now, at least by default, given it a .fw kind of prefix to the .png format. I'm not sure if this is a good solution. I mean, it makes it clearer, and I can see the advantages of being, actually using PNG, so you can always preview your file. I mean, one thing that the PSD format for Photoshop, the problem it has is not everything recognises it, and it can't give a quick preview of the file. So you have to do, install little extras or use particular software to kind of look at your files on your system. So the PNG's got some advantages, but and it's a lot better now. It's got this extension. So that's the Fireworks default file format. So let's just save that. Okay, so now we've created our artboard. You might notice we've got a properties panel down the bottom. So the properties panel always gives you information about the item you're editing at the moment. So we haven't got anything else on the artboard, so we're editing the artboard itself. Very much reminds me of the properties panel that used to be in Flash. I think it's still in Dreamweaver. So it's a consistent properties setting of, throughout the program of anything you're using. very, very useful. So as we don't have anything on the canvas or artboard, this is the control set for the canvas, so we can change its colour, we can define its size down here. If I was increasing the size of the artboard, I might want to make that size adjustment start from a particular place. So I don't know, if I'd started by putting a logo at the top, I might want to expand the board downward, so I would select the top anchor. But you don't have to choose that when you're starting up, it doesn't really matter. So I've increased the canvas size and I've changed its colour. Fit canvas, that's quite useful. If you were, and I've just selected the rectangle tool here, so if I was designing a button, I could then make the canvas fit that button to get rid of anything that fell outside of it, which can be quite useful. But I'll undo that. So as I've drawn a rectangle, you can now see when I click on it that the properties panel has updated itself. It now shows the properties of the rectangle. So we can see the layer name as it will appear. So we change that and it changes our layer name. We can change the width and height and the XY positioning. This section here, these are all the attributes to do with filling that item. So colours and textures. I'll cover this in more detail later on. This section is all the attributes to do with the line work of that item. This block is these are all the elements to do with transparency, layer, effects, and filters. And these are this one at the end is a way you can combine different shapes or paths and apply layer styles, which are very, very useful. And I'll again more detail later on. Okay, other things of note. As we've got our new canvas, our new document, we've got some basic information about zoom and canvas size here. This is to do with creating animated GIFs primarily. I've hardly ever used it, but it is very good at creating animated GIFs. And it uses the states panel here, so each frame of your animation will be a different state, and Fireworks will let you play through those. Now, by default, when you create a document, you have two main folders of stuff created. The first is a web layer, and that's to do with hotspots and slices, which I'll look at in more detail, which are to do with interactivity of being able to sort of simply navigate your artwork. And that's a hotspot, and the slices are for defining graphic areas to save out, which are really, really useful. It took me ages to discover those, but they're kind of a lifesaver now, and they really speed up your workflow. But then the second type of layer is just the normal layer where all your stuff will go, and of course you can create as many folders and stacked folder levels as you want to keep yourself organised. Also of note, when you're working on multiple pages, you can select the page up here, which can be useful. If you're not actually looking at the page panel, you can always see the name of the page you're working on up here. So we've also got some tools here for previewing if you're working on a particular type of graphic and you want to see how it's going to look if you optimize. If you're going to save it out as a JPEG with 50% compression, you can get a preview here, and you can see both at once or different compression levels at the same time, or up to 4. Rarely use those, but they can be useful. And the only other thing left that's the most important of all is the main toolbar. We'll look at all these tools, but just quickly, we've got some selection tools, all the tools to do with bitmap editing, all the tools to do with vector editing, the tools that we use for creating those items in the web layer, the hotspots and the slices, tools to do with colour, and the tools to do with how we view our document. One thing I did mean to mention earlier on, there's as you can see, I'm using the Mac version of Fireworks, but because Adobe haven't really ever fully embraced the Mac kind of operating system, or the look of the operating system, it looks just like the PC version, so there won't be any confusion, I don't think, between what I'm doing on this Mac and what you might be doing on a PC. I mean, I use the PC version of Fireworks as well, and I've not noticed any difference between the two, so very interchangeable. So that's a very sort of basic introduction to the Fireworks interface, and I hope you'll follow me into episode 3, where we'll start looking at things in more detail.